What exactly is inflation? One of the biggest economic terms you hear in the news and everyday life is inflation, but many people still don't know what it means or how it affects them. Inflation usually refers to an increase in the widespread prices of goods and services in an economy over time. What exactly is it? Is it good or bad? Why do some countries have high inflation while others have low inflation? However, it may be difficult to understand what exactly causes inflation, but understanding inflation itself will help you make better financial decisions. Well, that's what this video is for. If you spent much time pursuing the world of economics or financial planning, then you're likely familiar with the term inflation. But despite its prevalence in economic textbooks, many people who don't spend all day reading about stocks and bonds aren't sure exactly what it means or how it affects the financial market and their spending decisions. Hi there, and welcome back to Econify. Our like and subscribe buttons available for you to get amazing financial content. All you've got to do is click on it and that's it. Your comments at the end of the video are welcome too. The more the merrier. Now people, let's get cooking. During inflation, the cost of living in your country will increase, resulting in you needing more money to buy things you want or need. Inflation is usually measured in terms of how much the cost of living increases, as known as the Consumer Price Index, short for CPI. When prices go up, your money loses value, meaning it takes more money to purchase an item you previously could have bought with only $10 or $20. As prices rise, your money becomes less than before, causing inflation. So, what is inflation exactly? Inflation is a sustained increase in prices of goods and services, resulting in decreased casing power, and is usually measured as the annual percent change in a price index. A common measure of inflation is the Consumer Price Index. The CPI tracks changes in the prices over time of goods such as food and clothing. Now in this case, the currency will typically depreciate to stimulate exports and import substitution. Inflationary pressures are worsened when economies rely too heavily on quantitative easing or printing money to finance public debt levels, without corresponding policies geared towards managing private sector risk. When the Federal Reserve Bank publishes money, it lowers interest rates, which creates artificial demand for loans. This eventually leads banks to start lending more cheaply than they should be able to. How does inflation happen? Inflation happens when more money, in this case dollars, are chasing fewer goods and services. For example, if you've got 10 orange for sale but only $20 in cash to buy them, then each orange will cost you about $2 because people will bid up the price and try to get their hands on any available fruit. To calculate inflation, you've got to multiply the cost of a certain item in one year by the cost of the same item from this year. For example, if it costs $5 to buy a gallon of milk one year and now it costs $6, you can say that milk prices have increased by 20%. It is pretty simple. If you want to evaluate the percentage change over time, use this formula. 1 plus 1 equals 2, so double 2x equals 4. For an inflation rate of 10%, divide 1 into 100 for 10 over 100 times 2 equals 5%. This equation may seem simple, but what does it really mean? Let's consider a real-world example of what's happening when calculating rates on different products and in other countries. The first thing to take note is that because inflation doesn't occur at the same rate across all goods and industries, calculating a specific rate can be difficult. The Bureau of Labor Statistics track overall prices, called the Consumer Price Index, to get an accurate idea of how much things cost right now versus how much they used to cost. For instance, let's say I spent $10 on lunch at my favorite sandwich place last week, and this week I paid $11. That would mean my sandwich lunch has gone up by 11%, so not only do I need more dollars every week to pay for lunch, but also, because the price has increased, I am getting less food per dollar than before. See? What are the risks of inflation? Inflation can cause several risks, some of which include: first, if you have savings in the bank, your money may not be worth as much tomorrow as it was today. Second, if prices go up on essentials such as food and medicine, it will cost more for families and individuals to have access to food and get their prescriptions filled. And finally, people who are retired or rely on a fixed income could see their income go down when prices rise faster than wages. However, when prices go up faster than usual or by too much, above 3% annually, inflation might be happening. Now, how does inflation affect us? Inflation is typically a rise in prices and a dip in the purchasing power of money. This means that as time passes, goods and services gradually become more expensive. For example, if you buy milk from the grocery store now, it might cost you $1 per gallon. But if you wait 6 months, it might cost you $1.50 per gallon, because inflation has increased the price. To understand how this happens individually, imagine buying an item for $100 and using your card to pay for it. This doesn't require any savings. Your balance on the card might be $110, but what if there is a 3% APR on your credit card bill? You'll now have $103 in debt after paying off your purchase, plus what's owed in finance charges. Low interest rates on loans for a long period of time and persistent shortage of key materials have contributed to high inflation rates, which are now beginning to hurt American consumers amid a recession. Inflation also affects what people earn from labor because wages don't rise at the same pace as goods and services over time. If your employer offers you a 5% raise this year, but inflation runs at 2%, the next year's salary wouldn't be worth much more than last year's. What does this mean for you and me? It means that every day we need to make some tough choices about how we spend our money, so we can balance spending today against saving for tomorrow. The current inflation in the US. As of February 2021, the current inflation in the USA has been 1.8%. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the most recent highs for this measurement were seen at 4.1% in 2008 and 3.4% in 2011. After 2 consecutive months of significant increase, consumer confidence in the United States began to decrease again these past few months. US consumers have been remarkably resolute in the fact of persistent inflation, but there are emerging signs that they are starting to chafe at high prices. So, who controls inflation and can we control it too? In modern economies, the most important cause of inflation are typically a rise in the supply of cash and credit or an increase in aggregate demand. However, there are 2 types of inflation: cost push and demand pull. Cost push happens when supply is limited but demand remains high, so companies need to increase prices to cover cost, while demand pull occurs when there is an imbalance between the number of goods available and the demand level. With both of these types, it can be hard to control inflation because it's often determined by outside forces that are out of our control. The Federal Reserve Central Bank keeps inflation at around 2%. The best way to fight inflation is deflation, in other words, decreasing the rate of price increases. We may not be able to control exactly what causes inflation or how much we want it, but we can try our best to stop it by trying not to spend more money than we make and looking for opportunities where we may be able to buy things cheaper elsewhere. Inflation is a monetary phenomenon, which means that it affects the general economy. It has been observed in an environment of stable prices and high prices. Inflation can happen when more money chases after the same amount of goods and services. Now that leads to higher prices for those goods and services. Higher prices mean that people will need more money to buy the same products and services they used to be able to buy before. And because wages don't always keep up with the rising prices, this might lead to unemployment and lower living standards. Okay guys, thanks for watching the entire video. Remember to click the like button if you found this video entertaining. The subscribe button's there too if you haven't already. If you got any suggestions, don't hesitate to post a comment. We'll respond to you very quickly.